Hi, this is Jim Nilsen with a tech tip, a very simple little tip. I'm going to show you a tool in Lightroom using the lens correction tab for correcting vertical lines. I mainly use this in architecture. So here I have an image that I took in Provence in southern France on one of our photography tours. And the thing about vertical lines when you're shooting buildings like this is that unless you have your camera level and that would be in the back of the camera, just level or parallel to the building, your lines aren't going to be straight. In this case, I'm tilting the camera up, and so the lines here are not perfectly vertical. And to me, this bothers me. The lens kind of smacks of being a snapshot, and if you keep your lines vertical, it shows, to me, more intentionality. So here I am, simple little tip in Lightroom in the Develop module. And if we go over here to the lens correction area, the first tab here you see is basic. And one of the first things you can do to do some kind of a correction, and this is mainly for any kind of distortion that the lens might be causing, is to click this tab here, Enable Profile Corrections, which I'll do. And you can see that it did straighten some of these lines, mainly these horizontal ones here. One of the things that it also does is takes away any kind of distortion, not distortion, but vignetting on the sides. So I'll click it on and off. You see how it gets lighter. Sometimes I don't like that. I kind of like the vignetting, but you can always reintroduce vignetting later. But let's go over here to the right, all the way over to the manual tab. And this is going to make the biggest changes to the way these lines are running here. And I use the vertical tab here to start with. That's the main one that I'll use. And I'm going to drag it to the right. And you see if you click and drag, these grid lines will show up. And so I'm actually going to drag it to the left. And what I'm doing is observing the grid line. It releases when I release the mouse, so I'll go back to it. But basically I'm looking in these areas here where these lines are and how the grid will match up. And so I'm going to go back to the vertical and I'm going to click on it. And you can see that I drag it over to the left. And this always seems to be a bit of a compromise in Lightroom. This tool is not real advanced. You can do certainly much more in Photoshop as far as correcting lines, vertical and horizontal. But I think that looks pretty good. I'm also going to go to the rotate button and see if I can find some kind of compromise to keep these lines here, the horizontal ones, more horizontal. Because if I click on it, you can see that they're a little off, but not too bad. And actually, that's not the tab that I wanted. It's the rotate tab that I wanted for that. Excuse me. So I'm playing around with this rotate tab just ever so slightly. And I'm keeping an eye on both my horizontal and vertical lines. And I'm trying to find a happy compromise. I think that looks pretty good. The main thing that I'll pay attention to is the big front door. I release that rotate slider and I come back into the image and the grid disappears. But you can also see whenever you do this kind of editing in Lightroom and in Photoshop, you often will lose some of the image here. Okay, and you're going to have to crop that. In Photoshop, you could open this in Photoshop the way it is and perhaps fill in this information with information from here, which would probably work. So the lesson here is that if you think you are going to be needing to do some correction for the lines, shoot your composition a little bit wider so you have room for some cropping. Going back to the lens correction box here where we are under manual, if we click constrain crop now, it's going to crop that image, crop out all that white area. So not too bad. It got a little crowded down below here. I would have preferred to have a little more space down below and not do quite so much cropping. And I would probably also crop this image a little bit over here, and I would drag and get rid of this street pole here. I'm not usually using the crop tool in Lightroom, so I'm not that familiar with it, but there we go. I'm going to hit return and see what we come up with. Okay, that's better. So I like that. It looks a lot better than it did before. And to demonstrate that, we will go back here to in history over on the left where it says enable lens profile. We'll see the before. Okay, there's before, and then there's after. Okay, that's my tech tip for today. Thanks for viewing.